So it is the obligation of the Democrats to sort of like figure out how they make this compelling. And I think, like, you know, doing a primetime thing and the way they've done this has been fairly good. But the problem is who the villains are here is so nebulous. You can't say that Donald Trump, because if it was just Donald Trump, it wouldn't be an issue. But there were senators, there were congresspeople. It's clear there's a Supreme Court justice, you know, within sort of like, you know, close proximity that were involved in this. And if you either say as a class of people, as a group of people, they're bad, or you don't. And we've been getting mixed messages from the Democratic leadership. It's in prior to the 2020 even. Right?
Well, absolutely. Well, right now you've got, you know, look at the good man, John Cornyn, who's just working his darndest to get that gun bill passed, and then split screen over here. And you have, oh, and by the way, the Republicans staged an insurrection. And by the way, it was the Republicans, right? I mean, one of the things we haven't seen in the hearings yet, and I don't think we're going to, which is really unfortunate. You know, we just found out that that everybody knew this stuff was illegal, right? I mean, the president knew it was illegal. The lawyers knew it was illegal. Everybody in the White House knew it was illegal. The Department of Justice knew it was illegal. And yet the same thing kept happening, right? They had these lawyers coming over and over again, kind of pressing the case. And we've got to get Mike Pence to do this thing. Okay, that's fine. But you know who else knew it was illegal? People like Mike Lee and Lindsey Graham, who were looking at the same reports and who were or Jim Jordan, who was on the horn with the president every 5 minutes. There was a whole group of people within the Congress who knew exactly what was going on, and not one of them said a word about it. They are equally culpable to John Eastman, as far as I'm concerned. They knew what John Eastman was doing, and they didn't say anything. In fact, they looked at it and went, oh, this really doesn't make too much sense to me. And then they just put the paper down. Well, you know, there was an attempted coup. And they just went, oh, well, you know, never mind. And, you know, I mean, there were all kinds of things that were going on during that period. Like, you know, Chuck Grassley, for some reason, thought he was going to be, you know, actually opening the votes that day instead of Mike Pence. And everybody's going, what? You know, what are you talking about? Well, it turns out, you know, that was kind of a backup plan, wasn't it? And Grassley knew about it. Now they're saying, oh, well, good old Chuck, he didn't know what he was saying. But of course he did. And so did everybody around him. So you're absolutely right. This is not just about Donald Trump. It isn't just about his crazy cadre of lawyers that were pushing this thing. And it's also, by the way, and, you know, we can get into the substance of what's come out at the hearings, but yesterday's hearing was about Mike Pence. Great. You know, that's a big part of the story. I was anxious to hear it. I thought that a lot of the testimony was really good, very informative and very interesting. But Mike Pence is not a hero. Mike Pence, on the day of the insurrection, you know, behaved physically courageously in the fact that he didn't run screaming from the room, help me, get me out of here. Okay. He did say that he wanted to stay in the building, which made sense because he's saying, you know, when this thing is cleared out, we're going to come back to work and I'm going to fulfill my duty here. All good. That's a patriotic thing to do. He did the right thing. Great. Good for him. But that was the first moment that he did anything that was truly courageous in this. He knew what was going on since November, when Trump was, you know, going on, when they started to plot this thing. He was intimately knowledgeable about what they were plotting and what they were trying to do. And he never said a word. And even all the way up to January 5th, the night before the insurrection, the New York Times reported that he had in one of those meetings with Trump where everybody's screaming and yelling and you've got, you know, you're not going to be my friend anymore or whatever the hell it was. You know, Pence was trying to find a middle ground, right? He's going, well, I can't really do this, but maybe I could say something about how the election was stolen. Would that be okay? You know, he's going, and, you know, he's supposedly, yesterday they said he was steely and determined whenever he was questioned about what he was going to do. No, he was not. He was running off to Dan Quayle, of all people, and saying, can I do this? Would it be okay if I actually do this thing? And it took Dan Quayle to tell him, no, Mike, you can't do it. So no, he was not steely and determined. He was just one of the Trumpers who at the end of the day did the right thing. But boy, did it take a lot.
And let's be clear, let's just spend a moment it's speculation. But when Mike Pence calls Dan Quayle and says, here's my situation, can I do this? It's not, can I do this? Dan Quayle says, no, it would be the wrong thing to do. The conversation is, you have to weigh the value in you putting this on the line to make Trump president. Because the alternative is, you're set up pretty well to run again in 2024, Mike. You're a young man. It's all ahead of you. You need to make a political calculation. This is the same calculation that Bill Barr made. Yep. When he quit 2 months later, he's like, okay, the ship is going down. And the ship has a big hole in it, and it's taking on water. And Mike Pence isn't saying, is it the right thing or wrong thing for me to do to try and patch up this ship? It is Mike Pence saying, do I have a better shot at getting my own ship than fixing this one? That's the calculation that's being made. People should be aware of that. And I would argue that Lynn Cheney is making the exact same calculation.
I agree.
And, you know, she probably she took a position out here and thought that the rest of the party would be there. When she found that the rest of the party wasn't going to be there, she realized, I'm too far gone. I need to commit to this. And I'm young. Down the road, I could be all right. I mean, let's remember, this is the same woman who threw her sister under the bus in coming out against marriage equality. I mean, specifically threw her own sister out. Her ambition knows no bounds. I'm sure the same with Mike Pence, too. And so people need to be aware of this. And so it's not like the Democrats don't know this. They're all just equally as ambitious, except for they're just not good at understanding and taking a position and saying, you cannot get nuanced with there's good Republicans, there's bad Republicans, there's MAGA, but then there's Uber. What did they come up with? Uber MAGA? When you've got to slice this thinly for the voting population between MAGA and Uber MAGA and Republican, you've got a real problem because what kind of political messaging is this? It's just insane. Let's play some clips here, and I want you to talk about this. Mike Pence went to former Judge Michael Ludwig for advice on these election results. Here is that judge talking about his conversations.
And his allies and supporters are a clear and present danger to American democracy. That's not because of what happened on January 6th. It's because to this very day, the former president, his allies and supporters pledge that in the presidential election of 2024, if the former president or his anointed successor as the Republican Party presidential candidate were to lose that election, that they would attempt to overturn that 2024 election in the same way that they attempted to overturn the 2020 election, but succeed in 2024 where they failed in 2020. I don't speak those words lightly. I would have never spoken those words ever in my life in 2020. I don't speak those words lightly. I would have never spoken those words ever in my life, except that that's what the former president and his allies are telling us.
And we should just say, Ludwig, this is the guy who allowed the U.S. government to hold Jose Padilla for without charges. This is a guy who was supposedly threatening to blow up his building with a gas leak, supposedly. And people can Google Jose Padilla and see the pictures of him almost like in a sensory deprivation where as he's being led into prison. He later was like, I can't believe the Bush administration went further than this and tried to negate the whole thing and then went to work for Boeing. So this is no screaming lefty. This is somebody who is basically saying I can see the strategy here. And to be clear, this is one of the guys who advised Mike Pence on refusing to overturn the election. And also to be clear, Pence is going around and getting advice from a lot of different people. It's almost as if he's shopping around to find somebody who's going to tell him how he can get away with it, rather than I shouldn't do. How many times do you need different people to tell you you shouldn't do this?
Well, you're right. To me, I don't know why he needed to ask anybody. I mean, to me, anyone with a normal sense of decency and understanding of how the world works would have just said, no, sorry, Donnie, I'm not doing it. That's ridiculous. We're not going to overturn an election. No. And of course, knowing Donald Trump, he had to know that this was more or less just an ego temper tantrum, sore loserism, where Trump was just refusing to accept his loss. And instead, Pence went around, kind of asking, gee, you're absolutely right. I think he was looking for somebody to give him a good reason to do it, not to because why else would you do it? Anybody else would have just said no. And Ludwig, I think.
Let me just add one more thing about that point. It's not like he was going around and saying, hey, Ludwig, what can I do legally to do exactly what is pro forma? It's not like he was looking. I just want to be clear on what these conversations are, because they're being characterized as if he needs advice about something. And doing what he did, which is nothing out of the ordinary, just hold a pro forma, for almost like show vote, essentially. There's nothing clever about that. You don't need anybody's advice for that. You're only going around looking for advice on how do I not do that? How do I help Trump? Is there a way for me to help Trump and not expose myself to too much legal liability? Not what's a tricky way for me to get out of this jam with Donald Trump. It's just do your job, dude. That's it. You don't have to go to 12 different people. And we only know we only know the ones that are helping him now, as opposed to the ones that might have been might be able to get away with it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is, this whole hagiography around Pence is very disturbing to me because look, the guy's running for president. He would be a nightmare and a disaster. He was not a hero. He did do one right thing. I mean, great, good for him. He did the thing that every other, vice president has done in American history up until now, and certified the vote with this one pro forma, event. It's a ceremonial thing. He did do that. So that was very heroic of him and great. Thanks a lot, Mike. But, the rest of this idea that he just stood up heroically to Donald Trump and did whatever, give me a break. No, I don't think so. And Ludwig, his testimony was very important in the sense that, one of the things that's going to be held against these hearings is that they are not, quote, bipartisan, right? Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger don't count. They're rhino, turncoats, and they don't, everybody knows that they're just not going to suffice as proper, Republican rebuttals to what's going on. So that's the big, that's going to be the big roadblock for Republicans, not that I care. I mean, they don't care about this anyway. But nonetheless, that seems to be, as far as establishing credibility, that's a problem. So the committee's doing something very, very skillful, I think, in getting people like Michael Ludwig, who is, as you point out, he's the most. The only person they could find more conservative than him would have been to exhume Antonin Scalia's body and prop him up there. There is nobody more conservative than Michael Ludwig. And so it carries some weight, just in terms of credibility, maybe only in terms of history. We don't know how this is going to play out. But nonetheless, it's skillful to put people like him and to put Trump's inner circle and Pence's inner circle up there and have them be the testimony. There have been no Democrats testifying about anything. There was one Capitol Police woman who testified, who was not a partisan Republican. And these aren't any Republicans. They aren't just, they're actually testifying. Now, that doesn't let any of these people off the hook, by the way. But in the same token that we're sitting there talking about Pence, I'm glad they fought the coup. Good for them. It's kind of it's kind of a low bar, isn't it? That we could expect, lawyers in the executive branch to not go along with a coup. Thank you, but gee, I wouldn't have thought that would be a question. But nonetheless, they did do it. We'll give them credit for that. But that is how these hearings have been structured, so that it's all you can't call it partisan when Michael Ludwig is the witness, right? You can't say that's a bunch of woke Democrats talking. That's Michael Ludwig talking, and whatever you say about him, that is just not. That's not an accusation you can make about him. So I thought that was important, and it was mostly important for the fact that he was talking about the future, and even more than he was talking about the past. He sent out that warning, and he's one of the people out there from that side. There are plenty of us who were sitting there ringing the alarms, night and day about what they're doing out in the states to change the laws, and basically setting up a situation that we could. It almost looks inevitable that we're going to have some kind of a contested election in 2024 where they're going to use some of these tactics that they tried in 2020, and we're going to see whether or not they can make it work. A lot depends on what happens this fall if they elect a bunch of secretaries of states and other people who can do that.
And here's the thing that I think people really need to internalize. This apparatus is being set up. It doesn't need Donald Trump.
Oh.
This apparatus is being set up, and it is being set up in the same way that minoritarian rule exists in Wisconsin and in Pennsylvania and in North Carolina, where 55% of the vote for Democrats gets you 35% of the representation in the state house. Mm-hmm. This is being set up as a mechanism for the Republican Party to deal with the fact that there just aren't as many Republicans as there are Democrats in this country. That's it. It is that simple. Mike Pence may very well be sitting on top of this. I don't think he will be, but it's possible. It could be DeSantis. It could be somebody else. Tom Cotton. Sitting atop this construction with the benefit of knowing, this is why it didn't work last time. So those people who are sending us the electors in Michigan or in Pennsylvania or Florida, wherever it is, Wisconsin, they're doing the dirty work for us. So by the time it gets to us, we don't have to do the problem that they have isolated is the heavy lifting happened in Washington. And they want the heavy lifting to happen in the states so that when it gets to Washington, because their responsibility in Washington was to make 3 + 2 = 4 because they got sent 3. They got sent 2, and we're supposed to just add it, and it's obvious and come out with we don't want to do that. We want you to turn the 3 into a 2 back in your state so that you're just sending us 2 + 2, and we're just doing the pro forma thing. And that's what's happening with the Republican Party, not the Trumpistas. No, it's with the Republican Party. If they cared about it, Mike Pence would be out there right now complaining about what's going on in Michigan. Mitch McConnell would be complaining about it, but they're not. And so people need to be aware of this. this
Oh,
is
absolutely. This. You want to know? Republican Party kind of wishes Donald Trump would go away. He's a pain in the ass. He's a problem. He causes nothing but trouble. They have a whole new generation just champing at the bit to take over. You've got Ron DeSantis down there just setting it up just week after week with one culture war issue after another, right? And so there's a reason why someone like Mitch McConnell, who knows very well that Donald Trump is a disaster as a president, as a party leader, as everything, isn't saying anything about this, that he continues to tacitly support whatever these people are doing. And it's exactly what you just said. And it's so important to understand. The party benefits from Trump's big lie. It is benefiting from Trump's insurrection. It is benefiting from this. If it didn't, they would be out there getting rid of the guy because he's not worth it. It's not that they're afraid. I mean, I'm sure they are afraid of their voters. A lot of their voters are, psychos at this point, and they're all, packing heat. But that's not the real motivation. The real motivation for them going along with all this stuff, the, ultra, uber MAGA stuff, is because that benefits them. It benefits them because they know exactly what you just said, that they are losing demographically. Their party is a minority party, and the only way that they can continue to rule as a minority party is by manipulating the system in these ways that they're doing. And it's exactly right. They passed it off to the states. And by the way, there's a bunch of legal theories that are backing all this stuff up. I would have liked to have heard something from, maybe we will somewhere down the road, I don't know, about things like the independent legislature doctrine, which is some ridiculous concept out there that says, the state legislatures can overturn elections if they want to. I think most Americans would go, if they knew about this, would go, what are you talking about?
Right.
Why are we having elections? What's the point of that if they can just do that? And that's the kind of thing that's also working its way through the legal system, and it's probably going to get up to the Supreme Court, where we have another group up there that understands that their, tribe, that their party is going to benefit from this stuff. So, let's not be naive about why anybody is, why the Republican Party is tacitly backing Trump's play on all this stuff. It's because it works for them too.